Our last speaker of this series comes from just a bit further around the globe. Barry Robson comes to us from Australia, and I believe it's almost 4:30 in the morning there, Barry. Is that correct?
5:30 in the morning now, Brent.
There you go. So thank you for joining us. Barry is the president of the Asbestos Disease Foundation of Australia. He became a union delegate of the Waterside Workers Federation in 1970 and was elected as senior vice president of that union in 1988. In 1995, he was elected assistant branch secretary of the Maritime Union of Australia, a position he held until he retired from the workforce in 2003. He became a delegate to ADFA, that's the Asbestos Disease Foundation of Australia, in 96, and was appointed president in 2002 and then elected president in 2003, and he continues to hold that position today. He's been appointed to the following: the Asbestos Research Institute in 2004, the Federal Government Asbestos and Telstra Infrastructure in 2013, the Federal Asbestos Safety and Eradication Agency, or ASEA, in 2013. Barry's been awarded 3 lifetime memberships: Maritime Union of Australia, St. Mary's Baseball Club, and the Blacktown Mount Druitt Cardiac Support Group. Barry, thank you for being up so bright and early in the morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Brent, and thank you, ADAO, once again. And to you, Linda, thank you once again for this invitation. Well, just a quick recap on what's been happening here in Australia. COVID's really hit like it has around the world. We can't travel overseas. So all that work that the trade union movement here in Australia have been doing in Asia to implement a ban on asbestos in them countries has sort of slowed down. But prior to the pandemic hitting, FEDA, that's the organisation, the trade union organisation that does all that work, came very close to getting Vietnam to implement a ban. But as I said, the pandemic and the impetus has been lost. But I'm sure that once the pandemic's over and we'll be able to travel again, we'll get that back on track. Because if we can get Vietnam to put a ban on, then Cambodia, then Laos, and so on, will also implement bans. And the reason why we're pushing it really, really hard to try and get a ban in Asia is because even though we've got a total ban of asbestos imports into Australia since 2003, we are still having asbestos imported into this country mainly from being manufactured in these Asian countries. Just say, for instance, in the last 12 months, we've had 5 brand new ferries that were supposed to go to work on Sydney Harbour. Can't do it, full of asbestos. And there's lots of other problems with them also, but one of the main things is they were brought into the country, into Australia, and when they went to, the workers went on board to commission these ferries, they found all the asbestos. The one that's popped up in the last couple of months, believe it or not, is these remote controlled cars, radio controlled cars. There's little asbestos gaskets in these cars. So if they haven't hit around the world, they've hit Australia. So I dare say they'd be on the market right around the world. The other thing I'd like to touch on is the Rotterdam Convention. Australia, because of the way it's set up, the convention, Australia gets the one to move that there be asbestos be listed as a hazardous product. Problem is, the voting system in the convention, you only have to have one country vote against any motion and it's dead. Then you've got to wait another 2 years to go back again. So listening to the E from Africa, it gives me great heart to think that there are people willing to go and front governments to change the laws. Well, if E can convince the African governments to back the change, to change the vote at the Rotterdam Convention. So it's a majority vote to get motions through, not to have one vote to stop any motion. When I was there in 2015, it just broke my heart to stand in that, to stand alongside of some asbestos victims from India, and to hear the delegate from that country say to that august body that there were no asbestos victims in India. I couldn't believe it. And yet, in the same hall where this convention was taking place, we had these two victims from India. So I'm going to keep banging on about it, but people from around the world, all the ban asbestos people should put pressure on their governments to support the change to the voting laws at the Rotterdam Convention. You know, and just taking up on Barry Castlemaine's presentation, Hardy's, mate, the James Hardy here in Australia, we took them on 10 long years. And all the things that you said that's happening in Italy, that we went through the same thing, you know, and trying to convince government to prosecute these companies, it's a really hard slog. But I've been keeping an eye on the Italian situation, and it was a great report, Barry. It gives me a bit of heart to see that it's finally getting hopefully into the court system and get a resolution. What else can I talk about? What I would like to say, I'll finish up by what I would propose is that this conference put together a communique from the conference, supported by all the presenters and all the attendees, to urge the United States Congress to move the Alan Reinstein Act, get it into Congress. And that should be a thing coming out of this conference, a communique supported by everybody at this conference. And because if we take the United States out of the equation of using asbestos, then it helps knock over all the other countries. You know, to have the United States, one of the big manufacturing countries in the world, to ban asbestos, wow, wouldn't that be a kick in the pants for the asbestos industry? So I have not discussed that proposal with anybody, Linda, but I would urge that the conference give some consideration to that. And thank you once again for the Alan Reinstein Award. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barry. I very much appreciate your words, and I think that all of us would agree that a great outcome of this conference would be to get some very broad support for the Alan Reinstein Ban Asbestos Now Act which many people have been working very hard on for a lot of years.